Hey there, Lisa here. Welcome to my channel. I hope you'll join me in my love of crafting and DIYs and hit that subscribe button. I have a Valentine's collab today full of lots of inspiration, and look at all these lovely ladies. So there will be a playlist linked below with everybody's videos on it. So be sure to click that playlist and check everybody out. Special shout out to C, who won't take credit for being the host, but is the one behind organizing everything. Her channel will be linked separately as well. All right, let's get into creating. This project was so easy, but I think it turned out cute. So I took these foam roses in all three colors, and then I took this chunky heart cutout. I'm just going to glue these roses on the heart. But first, I decided that I wanted to be able to see the edge a little bit. So I do take some antique wax and go around the edges, and then I end up going across the front as well, in case you can kind of see where there's gaps between where I glue the roses. And then I create a little stand on the back so that it will stand up on my tiered tray. So I just use 2 of the small tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree, and I glue one horizontally, and then I glue one vertically to make my stand. And I end up really adding the hot glue under, around. If this is something I was going to gift, I would do this much neater, but I was just all about it holding well. And this is just for my tiered tray, and you won't see the back the way my tiered tray is set up at my house. Then I take and start gluing on roses, and this really is just, add a dab of glue. You can add it either to the heart or to the back of the rose. I end up doing both depending on placement, and I do leave it down a little bit because, like I said, I kind of want to see those edges just a bit. And so I start with the red, and I do a row of red, and then do a row of the pink, and then I do a row of the white, and then the bottom gets a white as well. And so this is really super sped up. This process takes a little bit of time, but it's really simple, and I think it turns out pretty darn cute. Be sure to stick around to the end, and I'll show you all of the projects styled on the tiered tray. I make a little planter filled with little wooden flowers and hearts. And so what I'm doing here is I take contact paper and tape it sticky side up to a piece of cardboard so that I can put my flowers on it and paint them, basically. I learned to do this from Karen at the Loft Home Decor. She's super talented. I will link her channel below. So I take these flowers that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I'm basically picking them, not necessarily on if I like them, but on if I can glue the stick to them and not really see where it's glued. So I pick these 3 that sort of have a solid middle or a place that I can glue them. And then I take some paint markers, and you could use acrylic paint or whatever you have. You could even use Sharpies on these, or those furniture markers work really well. Anyhow, I just use these paint markers that I have had on hand forever. I can't believe that they are not dried out. And I do one in gold, one in pink, and one in red. And this is going to be really sped up because, it takes a little bit of time to get these colored in the way that you like them. And this red ends up being more of a pink, but I go ahead and do the whole thing, and then I go back over it with a different red. And then finally I do the pink flower. And I just do 1 coat on each. The coverage was good enough. Then I take one of these little pels from the Dollar Tree that they had in their Valentine's stuff, and one of these little foam balls. I wasn't sure which one was going to fit, these little styrofoam balls, and just smush it down inside. You could also cut floral foam or any sort of styrofoam that you have on hand. And then I am going to top it with a little bit of moss. I start with this moss and decide that I really wanted the Spanish moss. So I just lay it on top and then push it down around the sides so that it will stay. I take my trusty favorite gel Loctite super glue, and I am just going to super glue these flowers to the tops of these skewers. Now, these are the skewers that are off the hearts that I broke off to glue to my little wood slices. So I like to use up anything and everything. And that way the skewers match the little hearts that I'm going to put in as well. So I glue a skewer to each one. And I'm not worried about the back because on my tiered tray you won't see it, but you could color the back, or you could sandwich the stick between two if where your tiered tray is, you can see the back. And then I take and place them in, and I place the little hearts. So I'm just going to do just a few. I'm going to do one of each color of the hearts, and then I have one of each color of the flowers. And I stick those down in there. And then as I'm looking at it, I decide that it needs a sign. So I take this little chalkboard plaque and I break off the clothespin, or most of it, and then I take and same process, I just glue one of the skewers on it. And then I have a heck of a time. I don't like my handwriting, but I was really trying to do this project super simple and super easy without having to use any special equipment, like the Cricut or any cutting machine or stencils or just anything. I was just trying to keep it super simple. So I handwrite for you today. So first I tried some transfers and they didn't work out right. So we're going to call this rustic because I just sand off a bunch of it. And I actually like the way it turns out. Sometimes some happy accidents. So I just sand it so that it's all rough and rustic looking. And then I take a paint marker. I just write Love Grows. You could also use stickers or transfers. I don't want to handwrite it. And I just stick that in there. All right, stick around to the end to see it on the tray. You get these little love signs in a pack of 2 from the Dollar Tree. So I basically just give it a coat of antique wax with a baby wipe. And then I take this square dowel and I just cut it down to size with my little mini saw. And this works pretty good. I know I've been eyeballing like those miter snips. They would make this really quick, but this works good. I do end up breaking it a little bit, so because I got impatient. Just takes a couple minutes and you get it sawed down, and then I do take and sand the end so that it's not rough. And I'm not worried about that little break in the wood because it's going to be a stand in the back. So I do take it and cover it with antique wax as well so that it will match my love. So I take 3 of these cupcake toppers as well, and the antique wax does not stick to these skewers, and so I just applied some brown paint with a baby wipe for these, and the colors are close enough. So I am just breaking these down because I want them staggered in height, and I am just going to take and I am going to hot glue them to the back of the L and O. But first I take and tape them together, and I just went ahead and used some floral tape. I find it easier to work with this kind of stuff because you can kind of tighten it around. And so I do 2 together and then I add the 3rd. Once I get my skewers the way I want, it is time to glue it all together. So I just take and do a line of glue and then lay the love on top of it. And then I decide, nope, I'm going to do it this way so that I can make sure that it's going to stand up straight. And so I just add that on there, take a skewer and try to clean up any hot glue that leaks out. And finally, I take and glue on my 3 little hearts. And that's it for this one. Now, if you have a tiered tray where you could see the back, you could sandwich the hearts between the other love, or you could just color the back so that it's a little bit more hidden. But the way it will sit on my tiered tray, you will not see the back. All right, stick around to the end to see it all on the tray. If you've been watching for a while, you may have seen this little gumball machine that you're going to see here. It's kind of like a trash to treasure. It was my kids' for Christmas last year, and I just took and gave it a little makeover, and I love to use it on my tiered tray, and for each season I can sort of make it a little sign and fill it with different stuff. So I decided it needed something for Valentine's Day, and I was gonna fill it with like chocolate kisses and do kisses, but I saw these little wood slices at the Dollar Tree, and I thought they'd just be really cute with little hearts on them, and we are going to call them hugs. So I take these, I think these are considered cupcake toppers maybe that you get at the Dollar Tree. And I just cut off the skewers off the bottom. And then I take and sand them down just a little bit just to get the sharp edges. Then with hot glue, I just take and glue them on the wood slice. And that first one, I put the glue on the heart and then put it down. I would suggest doing the opposite, which is what I do for the rest of them. So I just do a dab of glue and then stick the heart down. And then I just take a skewer and go around and get any hot glue that leaks out. And I'm going to really speed this up so that we can get through this process. And then once I have them all glued down, I am going to take a paint marker and just dab that spot where the skewer was, just so that it blends in just a little bit. And so I do that with the same 3 colors that I use for the flowers in my little planter for the tiered tray. And then once that's done, they are ready to fill up my little mini gumball machine. Stick around to the end to see it all done and on the tray. I take these hearts, and I got these hearts off Amazon. They came in a pack, 5 different shapes of hearts, and I never really knew what to do with these long, thin ones, but I thought that it would be a cute laying sideways as a sign for my gumball machine. So I take and I glue them together with wood glue. I take 2 of them, and then I add a little bit of nail hole filler because I'm not going to want the hole here. And then I set it aside and let it dry. Okay, so once everything is dried, I take the clamps off, and then I take and sand down my nail hole filler smooth. Then I give it a coat of white chalk paint, and it's like the Rustoleum chalk paint in linen white, I do believe. I will link that below as well. And I have this heat gun that I hardly ever use. I bought it to do like the burn gel. And I was like, why am I sitting here waiting for paint to dry? So I did get out the heat gun and actually use it to dry paint. This is the first time I've ever done that. And it worked really slick, especially this chalk paint. It dries quick anyhow. So I take one of these little wooden squares from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to glue that on the back as my base. And I just use hot glue. In hindsight, I would wait until you are done decorating the heart to glue this on. It made it just a little bit tricky to iron on my tissue paper and stuff because it had a back on it and was not flush. So I do it beforehand, but I would recommend if you're going to make something similar that you do it afterwards. So I get it glued on, and then I just do a touch of the paint just around the edges in case you can see the sides a little bit on the tray. So I give it a coat of Mod Podge, and I'm being impatient. Normally I would let this dry and then iron it on, but I give it a coat of Mod Podge, and then I put the tissue paper down and stick it while it's wet. I have better luck when I wait and let it dry and then iron it on. I don't know really why the difference, but if you put it on wet and then iron it, you still get a pretty good coverage, wrinkle-free coverage, but not as well as if you let the Mod Podge dry and then apply the tissue paper. So clear as mud. Anyways, so I apply it, take and smooth it down, and then I cut around the edges, and then I'm going to let it dry. I take parchment paper and cover it with parchment paper and take my mini iron and see, I couldn't lay it down because of the block on the back, and this is probably not the safest way to do this, so don't do what I do what I tell you to do. And don't put the block on first so that you can lay it down and iron it. So once I get that on and nice and wrinkle free, I take my little sanding file and sand down the edges. And you sand in a downward motion. We're going to go all the way around and sand it all down. And I got a little Mod Podge on the edges, so it makes it a little trickier to get it off the edges there. As you see, I'm struggling just a little bit. But if you don't get Mod Podge around the edges, it comes off really super easy. Then I take these little chalkboard stickers that I had gotten at the Dollar Tree, and I am just trying to do hugs, 5 cents, and then I'm going to cross it out and write free. And I probably did 4 or 5 of these before I got one that I could live with. I am not a big fan of my handwriting, but I am trying to just not always do projects where I just break out the Cricut, because it's newer to me as well, and some people just don't have special equipment. So I want to show you that it can be done just with your handwriting. And I think it gives a little bit of a special touch. So I just take and stick that on because it's just a sticker. And then I'm going to take a red Sharpie and cross out the 5 cents and write free, because we'll give free hugs, right? All right, stick around to the end to see everything styled on the tiered tray. All right, here we go. Here's a look at our finished 5 projects on the tiered tray. So we've got our gumball machine and the little sign. And then we move down to our Love Grows planter, our little love sign, and then finally the rose heart. I think these projects all turned out pretty fun, and they were all super simple and no special equipment, just Dollar Tree, a little bit of paint, a little bit of glue, and you can create these too. Which is your favorite? Do you have a favorite? Are these any that you think that you might recreate? I sure appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with me today. I hope that you found some inspiration here. I know that you'll find some inspiration on that playlist, so be sure to check my description box and check out everyone else's Valentine's creations. Thanks again for watching. Wishing you a super wonderful day.